Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons. So, one thing that's interesting about Dungeons & Dragons that I've noticed recently is I've been thinking a lot about you have your PHB, your MM, and your DMG, your Player's Handbook, your Monster Manual, your Dungeon Master Guide. These are the core of Dungeons & Dragons. This is all you need to run many, many campaigns. These are some of the most powerful books in all of gaming. They allow you to build worlds. They're incredible, right? But what about the rest, right? We got that 4 years ago for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Since then, we have gotten a long series of 250-page, full-color, beautifully bound adventures. There has not been a single setting book released for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And I've been really thinking about this a lot, and the reason why is recently I came to a new understanding about what's happening in Dungeons & Dragons. So basically, in the old days, you got a setting book with a small adventure in it. Now you get an adventure book with a small area of the setting painted in, an incredibly limited space where you can have your character's adventure in that setting. But you really can't have your characters range very far from where you are in that setting because the rest of the setting hasn't been painted in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, right? So it's really an inversion. We used to get setting books with a small adventure. Now we get huge adventures with a tiny bit of setting in them, right? And so I was thinking about this, and Mike Mearls is a brilliant creator. I really think he's the most brilliant creator in the game since Gary Gygax, right? And he's done an incredible amount to preserve Dungeons & Dragons. And he made this choice, and this choice is really strange to me, and it's strange to a lot of other people. Everybody is hoping you just give me a Dark Sun book. Give me an Eberron book. Give me any one of the 10 amazing settings you have. Give me the setting book. And people are thinking this, right? The other one is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is the absolute only setting that has never had a setting that is unique and new to that edition. It's the only edition of Dungeons & Dragons that has never, ever had a unique new setting for that edition, right? Many of the early editions had multiple settings. 4th edition, and there's been this trajectory of getting rid of the settings. 4th edition only had one setting, Nintir Vale, right? So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd all had multiple settings. 4th edition had one setting, and 5th edition has 0 new unique settings, right? Pretty incredible. All right, so I was really thinking, why? This is intentional. Everything Mike Mearls does is intentional, right? It's done with thought. It's done with caution, right? And especially when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons, right? And so I thought, why is he doing this, right? And then I thought about organizations I belong to, right? And every single organization I belong to, not in the professional vein, but outside of the professional world. Don't think about businesses. Think about organizations that you belong to. They all have this big question that comes up as they're proceeding forward. And do we build this organization to be seeker friendly or to be found friendly, right? So when you have an organization, you have members who have found that organization and invested themselves in that organization and know the content that organization deals with, right? And so you could take an organization and structure it so that it serves the people that have found it really, really well, right? And that the content that it's making, the activities it's doing are based to serve the found, right? Or you can take that same organization and structure it for the seekers, for people who are seeking an organization where they can have activities and content and they can interact with others around a subject, right? And you could structure your organization so that it is seeker friendly, right? It is very, very friendly to new people who are looking for that thing and then looking to interact with it, right? And then, of course, you can do a mixture of both, right? But the reality is groups are, it's very hard, if you're at 51, 49, that percent, that's going to fluctuate, right? So if you try to split it, one, who likes compromise? Virtually no one, right? So you're going to go 75-25. You're going to go 80-20. You might even go 95-5, right? And I think that's what Mike Mearls did. He decided to go, in my opinion, he decided to go 90-10. And I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is structured 90-10 for Seeker and Found. It's 90% Seeker, 10% Found. And what they're saying is that these new books, these adventures, this is all to bring in new Dungeon Masters, and also to have content for Dungeon Masters who don't know how to build their own worlds, don't know how to build their own adventures, or don't have the wherewithal to do those things. Don't have the passion to do that, right? And that is a really interesting understanding to me, right? I was like, oh my goodness, I'm getting it, right? This is for new people. Like these books, all of them are just to continue to have this very smooth on-ramp into Dungeons & Dragons, right? And the reality is, I don't buy the vast majority of these, I don't buy these Dungeons & Dragons adventures. And the reason why is, I write my own adventures. I don't need anyone to write an adventure for me. I don't even have the time to run all the ideas that are already in my head, right? The idea of me as a skilled veteran game master, dungeon master, going and picking up a 250-page book and then taking my players through a pre-generated adventure is unthinkable, right? Now, the thing that has surprised me is Twitter has become almost invaluable to me. I love it. I absolutely love it. It is really a powerful, powerful window into the Dungeons & Dragons community. And that comes from the notifications. The notifications are saying, hey, these people are interacting on this post. And it really brings to the surface the points in the hobby where people are saying, this is important, this is exciting, this is fun, right? And more, I see incredibly skilled veteran game masters running, Tomb of Apocalypse or Tomb of Annihilation, and the Storm King's Thunder, and and all these very, very long adventures. And to me, I'm looking at these people who I know are absolutely, many people who have written their own adventures running other people's ideas for skilled players. And I'm just like, what is happening here? Why is this happening? Like, why do people, these are coloring books. Veteran dungeon masters do not need any of these books, right? And so I think that's one of the things that is really fascinating to me is I think that Mike Mearls created these books to make sure that there is a steady on-ramp of material for dungeon masters who are finding their footing, dungeon masters who are very new, dungeon masters who are not confident, right? But the thing that astounds me is the number of skilled veteran dungeon masters that are running pre-generated adventures. That's what those books are. They're pre-generated adventures, and it's linear, and it's not, does not allow you to be reactive, right? And it's really shocking to me that all these veteran dungeon masters are interacting with this coloring book content, right? Like, it just seems really strange, right? So I think I do understand why Mike Mearls has chosen to create this continuing series of adventures that have just the barest hint of a setting and just a tiny painted portion of a setting, right? And why he's inverted what happens with Dungeons and Dragons, where we used to get setting books with a small adventure. Now we get giant adventures with a tiny, tiny bit of setting in them, right? That's all to be seeker friendly, to make sure that new people, when they come to the game, are finding a game that's easy to run and that they can interact with. And it's totally worked, right? The game is growing like crazy again. It's got great momentum, right? But the part that I don't understand yet, that I'm going to continue to think forward on, and I absolutely invite your input on this, is why do we have veteran dungeon masters dealing with this coloring book content? Like dealing with pre-generated dungeon taking skilled veteran players through these connected dot pre-generated adventures. That part I don't understand at all. And so I still need to think about that, and so, that just requires a little bit more thought on my part. Thank you.